We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Well, the weather outside is barely less than ideal, and the fire is gas and not real. But the California vibes, they grow. Let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. All right, 5 more days till Christmas. Ashley, I know you've been done with shopping for 5 months, and except for that, I haven't seen this handmade Christmas tale.
Well, I knew we were doing a Christmas episode, and I was trying to get inspired by all your wardrobe changes this past year. So I was like, how can I channel my inner Jeff Daly? And I thought, Charles Dickens attire. I am actively wearing a bonnet of my own design and make that I'm going to be wearing out to Carol and have fun and go to a show with friends, which you are all dressing up, by the way. I'm talking like top hats, bonnets, like long skirts. Like I even bought like a petticoat long skirt ruffle underneath my, like it's legit. Okay. I don't do things half-ass. I do things whole ass. Like it's going to be amazing. So excited. Look at this hat. For anyone who's watching the video, I got the holly for our super producer, Holly. I'm trying to, keep it real. And then this beautiful piece. Yeah. And then this beautiful piece, while I was home over Thanksgiving, I stopped at one of my favorite thrift shops with my brother, and I discovered this beautiful fur shawl, which I have learned is a very wonderful, generous value that I got rather inexpensively and just got back. So it will also be a part of my attire when I go out caroling, because I am that person, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I do. And I'm so excited. I feel adorable. I'm like on a little holiday, I'm looking at myself in the camera and I'm like, ooh, ah. Anyway. Happy holidays, everyone.
All right. Happy holidays over there in Indianapolis with super producer Holly. I left my Marine Corps Santa hat at the post, but this is pretty, Semper Fi spirit themed here.
Is it cold in LA?
In LA, it's LA cold.
Is the weather outside frightful, as you said?
No, it's very less than ideal, but it's not frightful. And I have the gas fireplace over there. It's runs on gas and not really real. I don't know if you heard my lyrics.
I did. That's why I'm like, ooh, that's funny. Because I think on the reverse side, it would be like in Virginia, it's rather quiet. And you know what? I'm not going to try and rhyme right now, but on the opposite side, you want me free verse? I'll try it.
No. We don't have time for that.
We don't have time. Okay.
That free verse will cost us. So
it will. It really will.
It'll cost some listeners, likely. Toys, Christmas, children.
Let's talk about it. All right. So Marine Corps. Marine Corps. After 75 years, Toys for Tots reaches more kids around Christmas than ever. This is from WTOP News. So for 75 years, Toys for Tots has been nearly synonymous with Christmas, making sure kids have presents under the tree every year. WTOP spoke with the top Marine in charge of the campaign about the program's long history and how large its mission has become. So for all of those 75 years, Toys for Tots has been an official authorized activity of the United States Marine Corps Reserve, which is made up of around 100,000 active duty and reserve Marines. Wow. Above everything else, above the physical toughness and valor in combat, at the end of the day, we are the values-based organization, said Lieutenant General David Ballin, and the top Marine for Toys for Tots and commander of the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Reserve. I think that Toys for Tots allows
us.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. All right. So I think what Toys for Tots allows for us is to demonstrate what we believe in and who we aspire to be in all the best ways, he said. We're doing something on our own time to help people we don't know because we think it's the right thing to do. Aboul-Enein has served as the commander of the reserve since 2019 and is based in Arlington, Virginia. Whoop, whoop. My backyard, ladies and gentlemen. He said that early on in his career, he might have seen Toys for Tots as a distraction from keeping him and his Marines combat ready. Fascinating note. I'm a little bit more mature and a little more worldly, says Aboul-Enein. Toys for Tots is a critical opportunity for us to interface with the American people and demonstrate our values beyond traditional ways. Marines spend time with kids and families who receive the gifts, and they spend hours with an army of about 60,000 civilian volunteers with Toys of Tots Foundation. This is an outstanding thing. So when people see these people together, so when you see these people together, you might have a 27-year-old Marine gunnery sergeant who is a combat veteran sitting right next to a 68-year-old grandmother, and they align for a single mission driven with enthusiasm and positive social energy. So the Marine Corps' Toys for Tots started in 1947 when Diane Hendricks made a Raggedy Ann doll and wanted to give it to a child who wouldn't otherwise have a toy for Christmas. But there was no organization at the time that distributed toys. Her husband, Marine Corps Reserve Colonel Bill Hendricks, gathered 5,000 toys in Los Angeles area and targeted orphans who lost parents in World War II. General Clifton Cates, who was the commandant of the reserves at the time, heard about the effort and ordered all Marine Corps Reserve units to start similar programs in their areas. Yeah, a little Snapple fact. That's so cool.
Hey, bro. Oh, I held it while you were reading. Every time you said.
I know, you were doing so good.
Every time you said Marine.
So well.
You know what? There's a couple of things. One, I don't like that they said an army of volunteers. They could have said a battalion. Whatever. The other thing is, I do see a similarity between the combat mission and the Toys for Tots mission, in that you are coming together, you are overcoming an obstacle. The enemy being not joy on Christmas. Wait, what? The enemy being, what is the enemy? How do I describe this enemy? The fact that kids don't have toys on Christmas is the enemy. And who better to defeat an enemy than my beloved United States Marine Corps? Hoorah.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna give that to you. You're struggling over there, trying to figure it out, wrap it up, put a bow on it, make it pretty, make it seasonal and festive.
So
it's a great
75
program.
years. 75 years. That's outstanding. You know who else is outstanding?
You.
Excellent point.
Excellent answer.
The show's not about me. One day I'm gonna interview myself, and it's gonna be joyous. No, Holly's saying no, but you never know.
Our ratings.
Today we're gonna be joined by retired U.S. Navy Commander Youssef Aboul-Enein. E9, like the
E9 rank.
Yeah. All right, Commander Aboul-Enein served 28 years of active duty from 1994 to 2022. He began his service as a medical planner after 9/11. As the need for Arabic linguists became dire, his career path changed, and he served as a director of North Africa and Egypt and assistant director for Arabian Gulf Affairs under Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. He later joined the Defense Intelligence Agency and became the subject matter expert and senior counterterrorism advisor on violent jihadi groups in the Middle East. Commander Aboul-Enein has published multiple books on these topics, and we'll be back to talk with him about all of this right after the break.
American values and patriotism. The American Legion advocates for upholding and defending the United States Constitution, equal justice and opportunity for everyone, and discrimination against no one, youth education, responsible citizenship, and honoring military service by observing and participating in patriotic and memorial events. We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
All right, Alphas, I hope you have your clearances in order, because today we have someone who was deeply entrenched in the intelligence community and is also intelligent. Two takes on the same word. So, Commander Youssef Aboul-Enein.
You got it.
Yep, like the rank, E9. All right, thank you for being here today. I'm Jeff Daly. I was not an E9 or a commander. Well, I'm a post commander in the American Legion, but thank you for being here. I'm out in LA and Ashley is over there in DC. So we're all over the place and we are here for you and are so excited. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate that. It's a privilege and a delight to be with you.
And here's how we kind of roll. I don't know how this happened, but Ashley gets to go first, and she'll ask you a question or two, and then you come to the nice one.
All right, sounds like a plan.
It's like good cop, bad cop.
Oh no,
Bad cop and badder cop.
There's a coin toss, so Ashley won.
All right, well, we'll get started. So Youssef, I would love to know a little bit about, your military journey, right? So you're a Navy guy, done some stuff. I'm Army. I forgive you. We're here for you. Anyway, all the above. But I digress. I would love to know a little bit about your military journey and just some of your career pivot points that have.
Well, thank you, Ashley. No, absolutely. I've actually retired this January, so this January will be 1 year that I've been active duty retired, and it's been 28 years and 1 day.
Congratulations!
To my absolute surprise, actually, 1 day, and it's because I reported to officer school on New Year's Eve. I reported early, waiting for the class to form, and that's where the 1 day came from. To my great surprise, but I joined the Navy in January of 1994 and retired in January of 2022, New Year's Day each time. And essentially, my 28 years, my first 7 years, I served as a medical intelligence and medical service corps officer, and I retired as a medical service corps officer. But my first 7 years, I essentially worked as a medical intelligence officer, medical planner. And I then deployed. I'm dating myself, actually. My deployments all go back with the first Liberian Civil War in the 90s in Monrovia. And back then, we were involved in a non-combatant evacuation operation with the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit. And then we spent about 7 months there on station with the USS Guam on the horizon, reinforcing the American Embassy in Monrovia, as well as evacuating more citizens out of that heinous civil war, frankly. It was absolutely heinous. My job was to worry about getting you on an operating table as quickly as possible, and or to worry about the force help protection of the Marines and sailors on board carrying out that mission. So I worried about medical evacuation routes and medevac routes. And I proceeded to do that really with the fleet. I did 2 tours in Bosnia. I did implementation force and stabilization force, again, as a medical planner. And then I did Desert Thunder and Southern Watch in the Gulf. And I got to tell you, Ashley, I grew up in Riyadh, the Saudi capital, and that's where my childhood home is, and where I learned the Arabic language as a kid. There was, even before 9/11, there was a dire need for me to kind of run interference with various port call. We were doing ports of call in the Middle East and North Africa. I helped my skipper, for instance, navigate the Suez Canal. It's a 32-hour, 16 hours each way. And my job primarily was to be a translator for the pilot, if needed, and to monitor radio traffic and any threats that are emanating that happen to be in the Arabic language. I also did that when we entered into the Persian Gulf. During my time before 9/11, I also did 2 Bright Stars, where exercise Bright Stars as a kind of a liaison. I liaised with Egyptian military intelligence and Egyptian special forces that provided a protective bubble around our American forces participating in that multilateral exercise in Egypt, in the Egyptian Western Desert. It's there, by the way, that I also had one of my most challenging translations, which is at the time, 3-star General Lieutenant General Tommy Franks. He was the most senior commander at Exercise Bright Star, and I was his linguist. And he had a few Arab, Middle Eastern partner nations who were artillery units, armored units with live ammo for this live fire exercise. And let's just say the Arabic had to be precise. You don't want to mess that up. And for that, to my great surprise as a junior officer, when I was in the Gulf, I was on the bridge after a long evolution, on the bridge, monitoring radio traffic for the safety of our battle group. I was presented an Army Commendation Medal by General Franks for that service and exercise Bright Star. But essentially, Ashley, 9/11 really changed my my career. It was like the pivot point, my 28-year career. It changed, it impacted me both professionally and personally. Let's unpackage personally. Personally, I was actually selected at the time to go to the Joint Military Intelligence College, now today called the National Intelligence University, to earn a master's in strategic intelligence. I had entered the Navy, by the way, from graduate school with 2 master's degrees, and I was direct commissioned into the Navy. And so I was there to earn my, what would be my third of 4 masters, because on active duty I got 2 other masters, but that was my first one on active duty.
Yes, I love this, Youssef. Everyone makes fun of me because I got 2 masters.
No,
yes,
no,
you're
I
in
got
good
4.
company.
I tell you, a lot of people make fun of me too and say you need to
catch up
for your doctorate. So, which I'm trying to do right now, actually, since I've retired. I'm a doctoral student.
I'm so proud of you. This is exciting. Go on. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate that. But essentially, Ashley, I had finished a meeting at the Pentagon, and I was going to go attend orientation at Bolling Air Force Base at Defense Intelligence Agency, where the school was. And it was 9/11, September 11th, 2001. I had just finished the meeting, and I figured, okay, let me catch the 9:40 shuttle to take me from Pentagon to DIA, to the Bolling Air Force Base. And I knew about Tower 1. Someone waiting with the shuttle with me had told me about Tower 2. We were talking about it. He was a complete stranger at the time. Now I know him, and we actually write to each other, wishing each other a happy birthday every 9/11, essentially. And but at the time, he was a total stranger, really a colleague stranger at DIA. And he told me about Tower 2. And I tell you, he would then proceeded up the shuttle. And as soon as I put my foot on the ledge of the shuttle, and I was facing the driver, it was like an Apollo rocket on your head. An incredible sound, absolutely incredible sound. At 09:37, American 77 was slamming into the building. And I was facing the driver, and my face was turned towards getting a seat. We're talking milliseconds here. So all I can recollect is the sound. That has remained with me to this day. I've never heard anything like it before in my life. And it did cause actually partial hearing loss. So my doctors at Walter Reed actually told me I'm darn lucky. And I said, why, doc? And he said, well, sir, your torso was in the shuttle. Now it didn't, because you and the driver were in the front of the shuttle. If you got it the worst in the front of the shuttle, as far as the shock was concerned. But essentially, because your torso was in the shuttle, it absorbed some of the shock. So it could have been much, much worse, frankly, had I just, and we're talking milliseconds here. I will tell you, everybody who had their seats, including the driver, had a full view of American 77 slamming into the building. And I remember once we regained our hearing, it took a few seconds, but felt like an eternity, because we're yelling at each other. And I was yelling, I was saying at the time, was that a truck bomb? You know, that's what I was yelling. And as soon as we crossed the bridge, we were regaining some semblance of our hearing. And they were yelling back at me, telling me, no, it was a plane. It was a plane, man. And that was the very, very personal impact on me for my beginning of the global war on terrorism, frankly. Professionally, there was a dire need, and I mean dire, for Arabic linguists right after 9/11, particularly with clearances. Even though I was expecting not to graduate, from the Joint Military Intelligence College. I was actually allowed to stay on because classes thankfully were in the evening, but I came in order to help with the effort and the lead up because of my ability to speak, read, and understand the Arabic language. I actually came to the Navy with 2 dialects of Arabic, and I then trained my ear during the war on terrorism to acquire proficiency in about a total of about 6 or 7 dialects of Arabic during my military career. As soon as I graduated, Ashley, I ended up with Secretary Don Rumsfeld, late Secretary of Defense. I ended up being his director for North Africa and Egypt, and assistant director for Arabian Gulf Affairs for 4 years, from 2002 to 2006. And I could sit and do another 2-3 hours just on that experience. An incredible 4 years. I did about 22 bilaterals: U.S. North Africa, U.S. Morocco, U.S. Algeria, U.S. Egypt, U.S. Saudi Arabia. Just 22 military bilaterals. So constantly traveled back and forth to the region. During my tenure with the Office of Secretary of Defense, my colleagues told me, "Don't worry about Libya. Nothing happens in Libya." Well, on my watch, essentially, Gaddafi decided to give up his weapons of mass destruction. So I was privileged to be part of an interagency team that developed the confidence building measures, if you will, that gradually disarmed the Libyan dictator of weapons of mass destruction. I also was part of, as director for North Africa and Egypt, I had to spend a lot of hours with my interagency colleagues. None of this Jack Ryan stuff. It's all an interagency team. Okay, it's all teamwork. Even to get SEAL Team 6 on target required really almost 15 years, if not a decade or more, of men and women working long hours, chasing after ghosts sometimes, and dead ends to get them finally on target, is the reality of the business. And in my case, I spent a lot of time on Congress, representing Secretary Rumsfeld and Mr. Wolfowitz, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, views on establishing formal bilateral relationships with Algeria. And we finally did that in May of 2005, and it netted an opportunity for us to dismantle terrorism in the Sahel. So I was very privileged to be part of playing a role, if you will, in dismantling a group called the Salafist Group for Propagation and Combat. And of course, regrettably, those that survived that became al-Quaeda in the land of the Islamic Maghreb. Also, as Assistant Director for Arabian Gulf Affairs, I had to go back to my hometown, Riyadh, a lot in order to assist with the bilaterals there and our agreements there to counter terrorism there. And in this case, we were working on essentially dealing with the first manifestation of al-Quaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which actually had its origins in central Saudi Arabia. And those that survived that went south and became AQAP, or al-Quaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, that we know today in Yemen. Essentially, I once I left this secretary. Oh, by the way, one thing I'm very proud of, very obscure but very proud of. I played a role in the Lugar mission. It's named after the late Indiana Senator Dick Lugar. The president had selected him to be the envoy to the Western Sahara. And essentially, he was part of our effort as an interagency team to gain the freedom of 404 Moroccan prisoners of war that were held by the Polisario. And I'd interacted with the prisoners, and some of them had been in captivity for 3 decades in the Sahara. So, but it was very satisfying to gain their freedom. I left the Secretary of Service in 2006, and I then joined the Defense Intelligence Agency. Specifically, I joined what is known as the Joint Intelligence Task Force for Combating Terrorism. And now today, that organization is called the Defense Combating Terrorism Center. It's the analytic counterterrorism arm of the Defense Intelligence Agency. And I pretty much remained most of my career affiliated with DCTC, or the Defense Combating Terrorism Center, until my retirement in January 2022. During my time at DCTC, essentially contributed to our efforts to combat al-Qaeda-associated movements, and of course to deal with ISIS, the ebb and flow of ISIS, if you will. the physical caliphate of ISIS, and then of course dealing with various threats from proxies that are attempting to undermine America's security. So that's in a nutshell my 20
That's
year
the nutshell.
The Cliff Notes, ladies and gentlemen.
That's the nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was
all I can say is I was at the right time, at the right moment, with the right mentors and the right skills, and I mean that's
very powerful.
Yeah, indeed.
I would
Especially
say
as you reflect on all these milestones. Wow. Go ahead, Jeff.
That was a lot. I was going through like the info we had on you and what I was going to ask next, but it's there. So everybody,
good.
So everybody knows. So thanks for coming on this. No, I'm just kidding. I have a couple. I take notes sometimes.
Please.
Your 12 dialects, I can barely understand most Americans.
I wish it was 12, but it's about half that actually.
Oh, 6. Okay, sorry, 6.
6 dialects of Arabic. Yeah,
Well,
I came from Navy speaking Egyptian. By the way, I'm an American by birth, and I at the age of 5 is when I moved to Riyadh with my parents. So I absorbed the Arabic language as a kid, and however, my first language is English.
Okay.
So, but I came in the Navy speaking.
Which American accent is that? I don't
That's
hear
that's a good question. I mean, it's hard. It's changed. It's evolved over time, and it depends.
When you said hard, I'm getting East Coast. Where'd you grow up?
Well, yeah, I can do East Coast if I'm marinated in it. But I will tell you, I'm a graduate of Ole Miss, University of Mississippi.
Oh, there! As soon as you said Ole Miss, it came back. It came out.
And I also went to grad school in Arkansas, University of Arkansas, and once if I spend any long time in Oxford, or in Memphis, eventually I will start speaking like a Southerner.
You'll start yawling it up.
I'm sorry.
You'll start saying y'all a lot.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, in some ways, thank God I'm still not living in the South. The food's so darn good, but oh my God, it's going to kill you. You know?
I can hear the accent is coming out now.
There it is.
It'll
there
kill
he
you.
is.
So I loved hearing. I'm trying to make sure I say it the right way. The 9/11 story. I don't know if you know that we did a series on of those, and it kind of took me back to the 9/11 series. I hope that we're going to link to with this episode. And I think whenever we talk about, we should reference this episode because that was a really close encounter with a scenario that we all just kind of know about. And I'm going to want to get back into that, but I want to make sure that I get an anecdote in. We both, I was on the Guam for a bit. We don't talk about when, but I also saw it, and I'm going to find the link and have Holly put it in the show notes. I watched it get sunk on purpose on YouTube.
Oh, no.
On YouTube, it's now a reef. It's a reef.
No, I've heard about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can watch it. The jets come in and they sink it. And I'm like, I swabbed that deck for nothing. But it's
oh gosh.
Yeah, so that's amazing. So you were in part of a lot of history with your jobs, and you continued with writing. So your legacy of affecting things is infinite. Can you talk about your writing and what subject matters you're doing, and what you hope that legacy will be?
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that indeed. I have to tell you that I had been writing since college. So, for instance, I used to maintain a book column in the Daily Mississippian, our campus newspaper. So I've always been that kind of had that passion for writing, for language, both spoken and written. And I always work on it. Even to this day, I'm constantly working on because if it's one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it, you atrophy. So you got to keep working on it, if you will, both the written and spoken word. And in my case, in the military, again, it's the right time and the right place. I entered the United States military in the 90s, and coincidentally, completely coincidentally, Arab generals in the 90s, for some darn reason, were coming out with their memoirs all of a sudden. And I got to be honest with you, I made it my business to introduce American military readers to their perspectives and their views. Now, I will tell you, I did get my writing start with the Army. And the reason being is when I was a lieutenant junior grade, I had approached various Navy publications with this idea of exposing these Arab generals' perspectives from the Arab-Israeli conflict. Algerian generals, even a Hamas operative came out with his memoirs for some reason. And I went to the Navy, and I said I'd like to expose this to American military readers. And there wasn't much interest, so I went and deployed with the fleet, came back, and then I went to the Army, and the Army has embraced me. So my initial writings of book reviews and essays, and frankly, this whole idea of exposing American military readers to the ideas of Arab generals and military thinkers started with the Army publications like Military Review, Infantry, Armor, and it's been an amazing success. I got to tell you, two of my series, an essay series, one that appeared in Infantry and one that appeared in Armor, became actually two books. But my very first, I had the great privilege of, in my 28 years of active duty, and I didn't plan it this way, but essentially I had published and co-authored 7 books on active duty. And my very first one was a monograph, how opportune currently, on Ayman al-Zawahiri, who at the time in 2004, when I published the monograph for the Air University Press, was the deputy leader of al-Quaeda. And I had published it 18 months after 9/11. There was such a hunger for knowledge about this adversary that I decided to buckle down and write this monograph for Air University Press. It was actually partly inspired by the work of Dr. Gerald Post of the Central Intelligence Agency. He's considered the father of leadership analysis in the intelligence community. And he actually wrote for Air University Press, the late Dr. Post. And I was inspired by his work on Saddam Hussein that I said, hey, I'd like to write something on Zawahiri. And that was the idea for the very first one, very first kind of book monograph in 2004. Shortly after that, I actually, at the same year, 2004, maybe even 2005, I published what's known as the Islamic Rulings on Warfare. I had co-authored it with Dr. Sharifa Zahour, and the Army War College actually published that, Army War College Press. And essentially what that book is that booklet or monograph is, me and Dr. Zahour are using Islamic-based argumentation and interpretations to essentially undermine al-Qaeda ideology and their use of fragments of the Islamic faith in order to essentially drive their own perverse agendas. So that's what the Islamic Rulings on Warfare was. And of course, after that, I had a little bit of a break from books, but I did publish a lot of essays in between and book reviews in between in military publications, including a 1998 poem in the Marine Corps Gazette there, Jeff. So, yep.
Wait, did you say a poem?
I did write a poem for the Marine Corps Gazette in 1998. It's called Rediscovering the Desert. And it reflects on my time in the Western Desert in Egypt with the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit. But I also published one or two essays with the Marine Corps Gazette. But in 2010 is the book I'm best known for. And 5 of my 7 books are published by Naval Institute Press out of Annapolis. And the book is Militant Islamist Ideology, Understanding the Global Threat. And that's the book I'm best known for. And what that book primarily delves into, the reason the book came about is several-fold. One, I was dealing with essentially 2 extremes in the debate about what to do regarding jihadi groups. 2 extremes. And those extremes are just outright dangerous to protect America. And you know those extremes. One extreme is all Islam is evil. Well, that's 1.6, 1.7 billion people. That's a fifth of humanity. You can't deduce effective strategies to protect America with that viewpoint. Now, that viewpoint may sell you books, because after all, fear sells, right? It may, reward you in other ways, because frankly, the titillating and tantalizing seems to attract more money for folks and opportunities for folks, but it doesn't protect America. Because in our business, we need our Muslim partners in the war on terrorism. And the other extreme, of course, is Islamist peace. That's another extreme that's completely analytically worthless as well. Essentially, I was trying to develop a model in order for us to reduce the complexity of 1.6 billion Muslims into something where we can actually pay attention and focus on the actual threats to our country, and not alienate partners that we need, Muslim partners that we need. Another reason I published that book was because after training thousands of troops going to Iraq, Afghanistan, Hoa, Horn of Africa, for various missions, I began to get a common theme from the enlisted, mainly, not the officers per se, but the enlisted. And it went something like this: "Sir, my superior calls it Islamofascism. My general calls it Islam. My other general calls it Islamic fundamentalism. I even got a senior NCO say, I don't understand this, sir, but why is it that I'm in the same unit and the company officer has a different description of the threat than the unit commander, the 06? Why can't you officers come up with language to define the threat without, so we can understand it better?" And at the time, I had no answers. So I pondered that question for the better part of a year and a half, and it only took me 11 months, and I published a manuscript, Militant Islamist Ideology, answering those complex questions. And in the book, essentially, I disaggregate the threat, and I say you've got to distinguish between violent or militant Islamists, in plural, from Islamists, in plural, and disaggregate those two from Islam, 1.6 billion people who have a diversity of interpretation of what their faith is or is not. And then I go on to define those terms. You can't just say those terms, you got to define those terms. Right. So for instance, a militant Islamist is a group, individual, or organization who's attempting to impose an Islamic social order in their image, on Muslims and non-Muslims alike, through violence or conspiracy to commit violence. Folks, that's the bulk of my career. It was countering various manifestations of that. So what are Islamists? Islamists have various notions of what an Islamic social order should look like in their respective images, but they typically want to impose that on Muslims and non-Muslims alike through nonviolent means. And that nonviolent means can take the form of just cheerleading various terrorist groups on social media. That's all they do, as long as they haven't shown tangible support to conspiracy to commit violence. Then you're not a violent Islamist. That's the kind of the line, the edge, if you will. All the ways to organizations like the Turkish AK Party. I mean, who do you think we've been talking to for the last 22 years? That's an Islamist political party. Very different from the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood, with its over 9-decade history. Very different from the Tunisian Ennahda Party. And then you've got Islam, 1.6 billion people who are like the rest of humanity, who cannot agree on how to, practice their day-to-day religion in their own private and personal affairs. And that's why you have a whole cacophony. So you can't just say Sunni or Shia. Saying Sunni or Shia is like saying Protestant, Orthodox. You got to go deep, you see. So that's really the book, Militant Islamist Ideology, I'm best known for. And I wasn't expecting to publish the next book. The next book was Iraq in Turmoil. And how that book began was initially a serialized series of essays that was published in Armor magazine, and where I'm introducing the ideas of the father of Iraqi sociology, who I discovered through troops in Iraq who were actually saying to me that some detainees were actually reading this material, you see. terrorist detainees were reading this material. So I went to the Library of Congress Middle East Reading Room and asked for the book, and the guy came out with 7 volumes called Social Glimpses of Iraqi Military History. And it turned out that that was a seminal work in Arabic of who did what to whom in Iraq, going all the way to the arrival of the Ottomans until the founding of the Kingdom of Iraq, the Iraqi Kingdom in the after World War I, if you will. So essentially, what happened is I was sitting in my office, and I'm getting calls from the field, from Iraq. Sir, are you writing this stuff on Iraq in armor? And I said, yes, I am. It's me. Well, sir, we're actually training and orienting troops using your essays. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly why I wrote this. This is exactly what I'm doing. I even told the caller, this is better than medals. You know, this is exactly what I'm doing here. And he said, sir, do you think Armor is going to publish a handy dandy special edition for us out here in Iraq? I said, because we're chasing different editions of Armor, trying to piece together your series. So I went to the editor, and the editor, took note, but nothing was happening. So I was having dinner with my publisher at Naval Institute Press, and he told me, nope, I have it from here. And he negotiated with the Army, he negotiated with Armor, and the 11 essays became 11 chapters in Iraq in Turmoil that was published in 2012. And in 2013, I published a book called Secret War for the Middle East that deals with Allied and Axis intelligence operations in the Middle East. I could co-author that book, Secret War for the Middle East. And that came out in 2013. And again, another surprise book came out in 2014, a year later. It's called Reconstructing a Shattered Egyptian Army. In that book, essentially, it began life as, a serialized number of essays, now this time in Infantry Journal, in the U.S. Army Infantry Journal. And I was trying to introduce American military readers to the ideas of the Egyptian Minister of Defense, General Mohammed Fawzi. Very unique individual in that he actually took over as Minister of Defense during a war, during the 6-Day War, during the 1967 war, is when he took over as defense minister. And that's really rare for either a defense minister to take over while a conflict is ensuing. But he's unique among Arab generals there, Jeff, because he goes rock bottom. He's scathingly critical of Egyptian arms, scathingly, and that's unique. You don't see that. And why he did that essentially was he had to mentally get rock bottom as to why the Egyptian army failed dismally in the 6-Day War in 1967. So then he can reconstruct that army, if you will. And I wanted to introduce his ideas. And so it appeared in Infantry, and that, of course, Infantry Journal noticed what Armor got with the book Iraq in Turmoil, and they wanted essentially the same deal. So Naval Institute published Reconstructing a Shattered Egyptian Army that introduces Fawzi's ideas to a wider American military readership. The last book I published before leaving active duty is the book I hope I'll be known for, because it's the book I had to write. Now, luckily, I retired on New Year's Day 2022, so the book came out in 2019. So mission accomplished, ahead of schedule, but it's the book I had to write, and it's called Middle East 101, 101 Essential Questions on the Middle East for Deploying Troops. And question 1 is antiquity, and question 101 is the downfall of the ISIS caliphate. When you get to question 99, 100, now it's more current events, if you will. And I got to tell you that me and my co-author, Joe Stanek, who, by the way, wrote a definitive book on El Dorado Canyon for Naval Institute Press, we actually knew each other by our books. He read Militant Islamist Ideology. I read his book on El Dorado Canyon. And the publisher was good friends with both of us. And he got us together at Naval Institute Press, at their building at Annapolis, and at the academy. They're on the grounds of the academy, and essentially said, hey, we'd like you to come up with Middle East 101, 101 essential questions for deploying troops. And you're the right people to do it. And it was a challenge, actually, because the good thing is Joe Stanek and I were fantastic. We were a great fit. He had actually retired after a career in the Navy, a generation ahead of me, if you will, serving in the Middle East. And I'm currently still active duty dealing with the Middle East. So that was a very nice overlap. What's really good is that Joe had retired from the Navy and spent a career teaching social studies and history to high school and junior high school students. So he was really able to help me with what really Naval Institute's mandate was, which essentially they said to us, we don't want you to be professorial, all right? We want you to answer the questions in such a way that you are, for lack of a better term, intellectually seducing that reader to actually put your book aside, or actually before they put your book aside, read the back of your book to see, because every chapter has a recommended DVD or book, and have them just essentially look at the DVD or read the book and then come back to another question. And if through that, we create the next serviceman or woman who will be the next foreign area officer, intelligence officer, or expert on the Middle East, that's what victory looks like. And
Wow.
And that took us 3.5 years actually to actually compile and to.
Well, Youssef, I want to make sure we don't run out of time.
No, please, I'm yours.
Yeah, let's. I only have one question. If you can answer it in like 3 sentences, so
I will try.
can get to promoting you to get out. It sounds like a lot of these books you had a lot of inside information, background information. Was there, and with your job and your clearances, do these books have to be approved?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Every single one of them, right?
Absolutely.
Not the poem,
no
though.
question. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm very fortunate. The publisher, Naval Institute Press, also teaches as adjunct at the Naval War College. So that's how I actually met originally. He would invite me as a guest speaker. And we have an understanding that I do not submit a manuscript unless it has been cleared.
Okay.
And what's great about my agency is that they provide one-stop shopping. So you get clearance from the Pentagon as well as from the intelligence community. And I got to tell you that in my career, I've had a great relationship with congressional affairs, public affairs, because a lot of times I'm asked to go and speak to congressional staffers. So I have a good relationship with them. In addition, I got to tell you, I was part of the Manning court-martial. I was a subject matter expert on al-Quaeda, testifying in PFC Manning's court-martial. So I was literally, after the aftermath of that court-martial, I was literally chained to the public affairs officer.
Well, we did an episode on Manning, but I want to make sure before we get out of here, because we are that people know how to get your books. I don't think they're all on Amazon, are they?
Oh, and absolutely. They're on Amazon. You can find them on Amazon. You can also find them on Naval Institute on their website.
Okay.
Naval Institute Press on their website.
Including the poem.
Great place to go.
Where can I find that poem?
Yeah. I'm sorry, say that again.
The poem, where can I find that?
Oh, I don't know. That would be more of a challenge. I'm not sure if you need to go to a library now, but some back edition, a 1998 edition of Marine Corps Gazette was that poem.
Look at Holly. She's on it. She's on the task.
I'll find it. She's like, I'll watch me.
All right. Do you have a goodbye, Ashley Marie?
I just want to say I have learned so much, and let me know if you're given any like lectures at any of the universities or whatever, because I find all of this fascinating. You have had an extraordinary career. It's incredible when opportunity and preparation meet, and you are like the star child of that. It's of like everything that you've done with your career has impacted an entire. Let's be honest, like you've opened an entire paradigm to another way of life that other folks may not have ever understood, right?
And I got to tell you, if I didn't have some fantastic mentors, men and women, civilian, reserve, active duty, NCO, and officers, I wouldn't be here, frankly. And I'd like to say too to my fellow Legionnaires, I'm glad to join your ranks and to be one of your newest members. I took advantage and squeaked right in. I want to say it was like 2 or 3 months while I was still on active duty, so I could take advantage of the active duty rates.
Do you want to give them a shout out real quick before we go?
Yeah. I'm sorry, say
your
again?
post. Do you want to give your post a shout out?
Oh, absolutely. I'd like to say hi to Post 11, Francis Scott Key Post. And hopefully you'll be seeing much, much more of me when I pass my comprehensive exam, so I can write my doctoral dissertation in your tombstone quiet library upstairs.
He was telling us about that was the best feature. Well, I want to thank you as well for coming here and
Ashley. I appreciate it, Holly. Thank you for setting this all up.
Ooh, Holly. They can't see hers, but
no, that's right. That's right. Well,
super producer Holly's behind the curtain.
She makes the magic happen.
Yes, she does. So thank you so much for coming on here, spreading your perspective on other people's perspectives and making sure that we all have the opportunity to know exactly what's going on. And if you're out there with big opinions, you should probably go find the facts to back those up, or be smart and egotistically distant enough to change your mind if need be. Thank you so much. We're going to recap what we've heard here today, but we're going to do that after the break.
Selfless service.
The American Legion celebrates all who contribute to something larger than themselves,
And inspires others to serve and strengthen America. We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
And we're back. Ashley, we learned a lot today. Do you have any takeaways?
So I was really I had this moment where Youssef was talking about his time and his experience with the shuttle at waiting for the shuttle. I was thinking it was for Boeing Air Force Base, and having that American flight like 77 crashed into the building like right behind him. It was so interesting. Like I felt like we were back doing all the interviews for our 2020 series for 9/11 Patriot Day, and I got chills. I got chills thinking about how he was just so close to all of that, and then all of the other guests that we've interviewed and since passed. But such an impressive individual, right? Like if that was anyone's pivot point, like wow. As a linguist, as someone who has gone through all of the defense intelligence, just agency, criteria, trainings, the books he's written. I mean, he was doing and still is doing some cutting edge stuff for a very niche community. And he's a subject matter expert. And it was really insightful to hear from him today.
I mean, I don't know what else to say. You did a summary of his whole appearance. So
you ask me every time, and I do this every time. This is not new.
Yeah, but I don't have a takeaway because you took them all away from me.
You can repeat yourself. I'm not going to judge you.
No.
This is a no judge zone.
You list everything that we talk. He writes books. He was a linguist. He got blown up.
That's my takeaway. If you want to do it, you go first. Then
so from now on, I'll just say, what is your single greatest takeaway? My single greatest takeaway from the single is now, because you took everything, I'm going to encapsulate them all into my single greatest takeaway is the man's ability to stand up in every moment of time where there is an opportunity for greatness. And he seizes those opportunities for greatness, and it reads, or you listen to it, and it's like you're experiencing a novel or a script, because it's just moment to moment when other people would not have made the same choices or taken the same opportunities to serve and to aspire to greatness. This man did it. And I applaud that. All right. And we're done with our takeaways.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we gonna load up, or what are we gonna do?
Can we call it like rapid fire something seasonal? Do
Well,
we have anything clever? You have anything clever on the top of your head? Like pew pew, but like I think I'm like
No.
no.
No. I mean the rapids, the fires are pretty seasonal.
That's good.
Except for one. But I can make it seasonal. So right now, you're gonna love this one.
Ooh.
It involves the National Guard.
Yay, we just had a birthday. You're welcome, America. What? We're the oldest branch.
That's a present. That little ditty was a present I wish we could rewrap for you, America. Sorry that you had to hear that in the key of something. All right, and there's some names of cities and things in this that I'm going to probably mess up, but the key of Ashley G. All right, and Nuiqsut. I'm going to say Nuiqsut. It's Nuiksut, Alaska. The weather outside was frightful. They had frightful. School children in the northern Alaskan Inupiat community of Nuiqsut were so delighted for a visit by Santa that they braved wind chills of 25 degrees below zero just to see him on a snow-covered airstrip. Once again, it was time for Operation Santa Claus in Alaska. And here in Nuiqsut, a roadless village of about 460 residents on Alaska's oil-rich north slope, the temperatures may have been plunging, but the children were warming quickly. Never mind that Santa left Rudolph at home to catch a ride on Alaska Air National Guard cargo plane in Nuiqsut, just 30 frosty miles south of the Arctic Ocean. Here, just a reindeer skipping a hop from the North Pole, the students were abuzz with good cheer. Some of them went out on the deck and they were jumping up and down, excited to see the plane coming in, said Principal Lee, Karasowitz. How's that? All right.
Okay, love it.
If somebody's up there in Nuiqsut, you can correct my pronunciation of both your city and your school principal, please. Back to the story. Principal Lee of the Trapper School, as he kept watch over pupils from the 160 student K-12 facility, privileged to get a pre-Christmas visit from the Jolly, can I say this? From the Jolly Fat One? Are we allowed to do that? The gravitationally challenged? What? Can I say that? They knew right away by the size of the plane who was on that plane. The principal said of the students. What do you think of Operation Santa Claus? What do you think of National Guard? What do you think of the temperature? What do you think?
I think all the things personally, but I think Operation Santa Claus is lovely. I think it brings joy to children, especially in dreary weather conditions, being that close to the Arctic Ocean. No, thank you. But for those kids, that's amazing. And this is of course something was brought back. And I think the article goes on to talk about how it began in 1956 and how, by just one of the residents of the community. So it's really cool to see that tradition continuing forward. And that's a shared memory for generations of folks in that town, and that's really special. And it's honestly, I don't think I've ever seen the big man Santa coming in on a helicopter or any sort of vehicle of sorts, but it sounds lovely. I'm down for it. I would enjoy it wholeheartedly.
Except for the 25 below.
Yeah, I'd be bundled up. I'm gonna need a lot of gear. I'm gonna need some gear. I'm gonna need this and some more this and that, and yeah, I'm just gonna bundle up.
All right, this is something we've kind of covered before. Oh, you know what we didn't do today?
What?
This section of our show. Pew 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 pew.
Oh no!
So that was rapid fire one, ladies and gentlemen. We are silly on eggnog, maybe? Can we say? Are we? Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's do rapid fire number pew pew two. This is about the Veteran Service Recognition Act of 2022. We've done some, we did an immigration thing before, really early. I found it, season 1, episode 17, that I'm sure will be in the show notes. You'll see Mark Seavey on there giving his legal perspective, I believe, if I remember properly. All right. American Legion supported legislation that would provide an easier path to returning to the United States for deported veterans and early opportunities for non-service members to apply for naturalization passed the House of Representatives on December 6th. There's a lot here. I'm not going to read through all of this, but it's passed the House. It's on its way to the Senate. What do we think?
Exciting. Let's do it. Awesome. Great. Everybody make stuff happen. Gosh.
I've heard horror stories of the way people, they get out, and the military is not interested in what you have to do when you get out. They're more interested in trying to talk you into staying.
That's
so
true.
the paperwork doesn't all get done, and then they get out and there's a limited time to get it done. And then
And you don't know what you need. It's a whole thing.
And if they do anything like jaywalk, they're out of here. I mean, you saw that there's a Netflix series on there. Look at Mark with a mask on in the preview here. It's so if you're there, it's season 1, episode 17. About 28 minutes 35 seconds into it, we talk about the Netflix episode where that Marine was deported and basically had to sneak back in the country to go beg the governor to pardon him for marijuana possession. He left a state where it was legal, was going to a state where it was legal, but got pulled over, and that got him deported. Just, your medals mean nothing to me. Your valor, get out. So hopefully this fixes it.
Yeah, we have a very broken immigration system, and for years, it's just, honestly, it's just.
So I just think it's particularly frustrating when it involves people who served the country and were promised citizenship, and we need to
right. No matter where you're born, you wore the uniform.
And if it's part of your service, it's part of you. I mean, I just don't understand how this has taken so long, but we're on the path towards solvency. So Happy New Year, potentially, for all these people to get their rightful place as American citizens. All right. I don't know if you know this I didn't know this about Hanukkah. It was, rapid fire. Oh, super producer Holly is reminding me about the finger guns. Pew, 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 pew. That was 4, sorry. Pew, pew, pew. Rapid fire number 3. I don't know if we knew this. The Hanukkah was actually derived from military victory. Did you know this?
I did not. Let's get into it.
The oil that fueled the Hanukkah Miracle. This was on NPR. For 8 days, Jews celebrate a miracle that occurred about 2,200 years ago. Here's the story in a nutshell. A tyrant king from Damascus had ruled over the Jews and forced them to worship Greek gods. Jewish rebels fought for their freedom for 3 years, and victorious reclaimed the holy temple in Jerusalem. Now, to rededicate the temple, they needed oil to light the menorah, but they could only find enough to keep the flames burning for 1 night. And here's the miracle. The oil lasted for 8 days. In that time, they were able to make more oil and keep the eternal flame lit. This is a interview on NPR, and she introduces Dr. Raphael Frankel, who is an Israeli archaeologist who taught at the University of Haifa. He wouldn't confirm the miracle, but he is certain the oil was pressed from olive oil, the holy oil, as I will now call it. I love including all of the legionnaires of different faiths, and this is a great story that I'd never heard. until researching for stories for this. I've also been to Haifa, but I did not visit the University of Haifa. Now I'm feeling like I missed out, and I need to go back and speak to Dr. Raphael Frankel. So, what do you think?
I love when we can include historical Snapple facts and share with people different cultures.
What did you just say?
Snapple facts. Like, this is a cool history Snapple fact that like people didn't know, like what the history was.
I get the history part, but Snapple fact?
Yeah, you've never had like a Snapple and like you did the cat and then there would be like a fun fact on it.
Oh, wow.
Never participated in that? Maybe.
I mean, I haven't had a Snapple in decades, but
I don't know. I make weird references. Sometimes people either get it or they don't. A lot of them are just obscure movies from the 90s and 80s and like cult classics. And people look at me like I'm just, and then they're like, oh, I know that movie. And then they like start talking about it. And I'm like, oh, and then I'll say the next line and they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm like, just when you don't know, just tell me. I get excited and then I get let down. But Snapple facts, ladies and gentlemen, and this is an important cultural, factoid about a large portion of our, our troops who are Jewish. So very cool.
Right. Including, I always bring up the 4 chaplains, and because people forget one of the 4 chaplains was in fact a rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
So very important to the American Legion. We should include this story on 4 Chaplains Evening. All right, I think that's it. Woo, we made it. I got more eggnog. I actually don't drink eggnog. I can't keep going on with that joke. I think it's the name. I've never wanted to consume something called eggnog.
It's really good. I have some in my fridge. I've baked cookies. I have eggnog. I have a hot cocoa bar. I've had friends over for like hot cocoa. Oh yeah, it's been a whole ordeal. My whole house is decorated. I'm just so happy.
Except for your set.
Like, so happy. What?
Except for your set. Your set isn't decorated.
I thought about stringing some lights up, but then I was like, that would require me to go outside and take some of my actual lights down to move, because I would have to literally physically. I'm a very calculated decorator. It is a superpower. So I have just enough light strands to get exactly where I need to be. I don't have any extra.
All right.
Everything gets out of the tote.
You have extra. All right. So that is a great opportunity for us to roll on out of here. Why don't you wrap this show up in a bow, put it in a sleigh so we can fly on home.
Okay. All right. So don't forget to subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are consuming your podcasts. Please leave us a review and give us a big old 5-star rating so the world knows how much you love us. If you do have a guest recommendation, which we highly encourage, please visit thelegion.org/Tango Alpha Lima website and click on the suggest a guest link, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Aww. Well, actually, I don't know if you know, this is the last episode of the season.
It is.
The next one will be in January. Alphas out there, I want you to have a Alpha Merry Christmas, and I want you to share the Alpha love. I want you to tango some gifts and leave them around so that other people can enjoy their Alpha status in the new year, which I know is everyone's New Year's resolution. And don't forget, if you're gonna be in Florida, we are going to be at the SVA NatCon. Is it #NatCon? #NatCon 2023. Do they put the year? Yeah, #NatCon 2023. If you want to see these faces in person, live in Florida, or maybe have to rescue us from a gator, I don't know. Alphas jump in and save us. We love that, and we love you. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we're going to see you in 2023.
Happy holidays.